Welcome to Action on Pain, a podcast dedicated to highlighting the significant efforts underway in Canada to address chronic pain.
By presenting perspectives from individuals who live with pain, researchers, clinicians, and other stakeholders, we explore various impacts on people's lives and the initiatives, research endeavors, and the committed professionals working to effect meaningful change.
This work is guided by Health Canada's Action Plan for Pain. Join us as we raise awareness and share stories that are shaping the future of pain management in Canada.
Well, hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us for another extraordinary Action on Pain podcast. It is really nice to have you here today, and it's a real brisk day here in Nova Scotia, so thank you for joining us, and welcome my co-host from other places in Canada. So welcome Keith and Jennifer to the studio today.
Great. Yeah. Thanks, everybody, for joining us again today. It's always a pleasure to be here with my two amazing co-hosts. As always, yet again, I'm coming from, I think, beautiful British Columbia, the Okanagan Valley in Kelowna. Kind of fall-like weather, but it's a beautiful sunny day and still trying to figure out where the summer went. Time goes by so fast, but enjoying a lovely fall-like day here in the Okanagan. So,
Great. Isn't it always beautiful in the Okanagan?
Well, I'm a little biased, so I'm going to say yes. Yeah.
And probably similarly to Nova Scotia, I'm coming from our nation's capital in Ottawa, and it's a bit cool and brisk, but I'm encouraged by the fact that it's sunny and there's some beautiful, gorgeous fall colors in the trees. So that just makes it all worthwhile and great to be back in studio too. So,
absolutely. Yeah.
And we are so excited today and very happy to have Delane Linkiewich join us here as our guest for today on Action on Pain. Delane has been living with chronic pain for over 17 years following a motor vehicle accident and is a passionate advocate for people who live in pain. She is actually involved in the pain community and is a patient partner with the Chronic Pain Network on their patient engagement committee and sits on the steering committee for Pain Canada's Putting the Pieces Together conference. Delane is also a PhD student in clinical child and adolescent psychology program at the University of Guelph. Delane takes a patient-oriented approach to exploring the social context of youth living with chronic pain, namely peer support and peer relationships. Her program of research is focused on developing, implementing, and evaluating a group peer support intervention for adolescents with chronic pain. That's incredible. It's so terrific seeing you today, Delane, and it was so fun seeing you at the Canadian Pain Society annual scientific meeting in the spring. And I was thinking about this morning. You and I go back to somewhere around 2018, where I believe it was both of our first in-person meetings with the Chronic Pain Network. We were new to the patient engagement committee together. Then later, we also had an opportunity to work on the Putting the Pieces Together conference steering committee. So it's so fun to think that we have that common link. And it's so lovely to see you.
Thanks for having me.
It's a real thrill to have you here on board and looking forward to hearing about your incredible experience.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really excited to be here today. Thanks for...
Pleasure having you, Delane. So we've noticed from your incredible bio, Jennifer had shared that you wear multiple hats. So, you bring a very unique perspective as someone who's a PhD candidate and a person living with pain. Can you tell us how this aligns with the action plan and certainly around goal number 4, pain research and related infrastructure enables discovery, catalyzes innovation, and results in the translation of knowledge into the real world impact. So how does your work contributing to this?
That's a great question. So yeah, I do wear a lot of hats. And I think, like you said, that I feel fortunate to get to bring those experiences to the work that I do every day. And, as probably each of you also sometimes feels like all of those hats, sometimes you wear maybe one more than the other, but they're all really inextricable parts of you. So you can't necessarily fully take one off. So I think that just really kind of helps to, again, bring unique perspectives to different kind of things that we're involved in. And so I think particularly in relation to the action plan, I think, I have the trainee hat as a PhD candidate, and then I also have the person living with pain hat as well. And so, this goal number 4 really talks about research, which is where kind of many hats can intersect. But for me specifically, it's the trainee and then also the person living with pain. And that kind of brings to mind the patient-oriented work that I do as a trainee, but also the patient-oriented work that I'm engaged in as a person living with pain. So yes, lots of overlap and crisscross between those things.
That is amazing. And, Delane, one thing I didn't realize in hearing your introduction, your bio, and here you and I have a connection. So your introduction, your genesis to pain was a motor vehicle accident, as was mine. Mine was 40 years ago because I'm a little bit older than you, but I was 16 at the time. So that similarity is a motor vehicle accident at a young age. So was that your motivation, your experiences through that experience, and then that living with pain that led you to want to get into research?
100%.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, having chronic pain at any time in your life can bring lots of new experiences and realizations and things like that. And for me specifically, I was 12 years old. So, yeah, really just kind of starting out my life and my identity formation, right? Because that's such a huge part of your life where you're trying to figure out, like, who am I? And I will say that at first it was very difficult and I did lots and lots and lots of work. I was very, very fortunate and privileged to get into a pediatric chronic pain clinic about a year after my accident. And so I truly don't think I'd be where I am today without the support of the amazing team there and just teaching me all of the strategies and things like that. And really, it was my pain clinical psychologist who really inspired me and made me realize, like, wow, you know what? I want to help other youth living with chronic pain because, I struggled for a long time. And it was really once I was able to kind of come to the acceptance of this is going to be a part of me. Why not make it a part of me that can give back and do good? And so, we're working towards being a clinical psychologist, there's the clinical part, but then there's also the research part.
Right.
And so I fell in love with both of those things. And I particularly fell in love with research. And I think that really allowed me to use my own lived experiences to then develop my program of research, which is on peer support. Because I really felt that, I didn't have anyone who understood what I was going through as a young adolescent living with chronic pain. And as I mentioned, those are such formative years. So really, that's why I was like, you know what? I want to do something that I can try and make it better for other youth living with chronic pain. And so that's why I decided to, focus my work on chronic pain and youth with chronic pain. So yeah, absolutely. It was a huge impact on how I chose to kind of decide who I am and what I wanted to do as a career.
I think that's just incredible. And as you go on with your career and having that lived experience and the impact of it, I think it's going to really, really make meaningful impact for others who are living with pain. I mean, just like you had talked about that peer support, it's being with that other person who's living with pain. And I think, with your lived experience, you understand it's that I get it too,
Yeah,
So I think it's going to be
100%.
huge. I look forward to watching where you go. So what are your next, what year are you in at your PhD? What's your next steps?
That's always can sometimes be a little bit of a dreaded question, to be honest. And it's well, sometimes, some days more than others. But I feel like right now I'm in like a good place. I'm like ready to go. I'm in my 4th year of my PhD, and so my kind of next steps really are focused on. I'm at an exciting part where I'm actually getting to pilot that group peer support program that I've developed with other youth with chronic pain, as well as their caregivers and healthcare professionals. So I'm currently actually recruiting for that group. We're running it out of McMaster Children's Hospital, where I also work part-time, and then through the Stollery Children's Hospital, kind of where it all started for me. So it's really this full circle moment where I'm able to really give back, right, to the place that gave me a totally different outlook on how I could live my life. So I'm doing that. And then, in a couple years, I hope to do a postdoc, and then we'll kind of see where things go from there. I'm hoping to keep doing research because it is one of my true loves. And also I've really fallen in love with the clinical work that I do as well. And like I mentioned, I work 2 days a week at Exeter Children's Hospital's pediatric chronic pain program. And so actually getting to work with youth who live with pain and like you said, Virginia, getting to connect with them, be, that person who understands but can also, help them get better is just, yeah, I truly wake up every day and I am just so grateful for the work that I do and the people I get to work with.
And how lucky are they to be working with you as an enthusiastic, like guided person through lived experience, but also it's just in listening to you describe this, you can hear the passion.
Yeah.
And am I correct in saying that these two hospitals that you're connecting with are in two different provinces? Would that be right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
One's in Alberta and then one's in Ontario.
Okay. Yeah.
But again, I'm excited to get to pilot out of these amazing clinics. And yeah, it'll be a busy kind of next year for me. And I'm just looking forward to it so much because truly I've wanted to do this since, my undergrad when I decided, like,
Amazing.
for me,
Right.
it was even before, but this is the moment. I'm really excited.
This is the moment. I love that. And, listening to, I'll use the word challenge. It may have been like in those early years and trying to find some sort of peer support or some sort of like sense of where am I and who am I, different reasons, different point in life. When I was on my early days of journey, learning to live with pain, and in my case, without a diagnosis, I was searching for some kind of support, some kind of connection to others who might have a similar experience or someone to talk to. Not in any other way except just to know that somebody else is out there experiencing something similar. And unfortunately, it wasn't available at the time. And so I really appreciate and value the work that you're doing in that because it will help so many people.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I mean, like we knew it before the action plan came out, and the action plan really kind of emphasized that 1 in 5 people live with chronic pain. So it's and youth, right? 1 in 5 adults,
Youth.
1 in 5 youth live with chronic pain. So it's something that lots of people deal with, yet not many people either talk about it or know, right? So
Exactly.
Just feeling a real sort of connection, and you're taking me back many, many years. But we look at the action plan, like you say, it really cemented that. We knew it, but it really cemented that from a federal level. And we look at goal number 4 and kind of the focus of your work, which is pain research and infrastructure enabling discovery and catalyze innovation. I'm really connected with your personal experience. And I think it's amazing, Delane, that you bring this trifecta of unfortunately one who's lived with pain and then, as a clinician and now getting into research. That's the spectrum, right? You're the rainbow, you're the holy grail, you're the unicorn, you bring it all. But I have a real soft spot for pain in youth. You were 12. I was 16. My accident was in the mid 80s, so there were no peer supports, there were none of that. And like you said, as a youth, you're just starting to identify as who you are, who you want to be. And when that is literally ripped away from you without any guidance, support, it can lead, sounds like maybe for you, don't want to put words in your mouth, but my experience was it led to like literally decades of just being lost and frustrated and angry and not knowing who I was because the person I thought I was going to be was taken away from me. So I love your passion and your focus and that you're bringing your personal experience, your clinical experience and research to this. I mean, I have no doubt you're going to make big impact as you go forward. So thank you for all of this.
Thank you. And thanks for sharing your experiences as well.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I mean, I think we talk about that, and like I said, I have a warm spot too for youth going through. I mean, I was older when I had my workplace injury. For me, it was the loss of identity. I knew where I was going, but all of a sudden, you're not going there any longer. You can't do this. And I think, Jennifer, you're kind of in the same situation. You can't do this. You're not going to go there. It's not going to happen. So you have to rethink and you have to grieve those losses. And I don't think people realize what happens to us and that you do have to go through that process.
Yeah.
Well, very much like we are whole people. We're more than our symptoms. And it's a difficult challenge for the healthcare system to be able to address all of that whole person perspective. And also tough for someone going through it for the first time, as we all have gone through it for the first time, in terms of experiencing pain and turning into chronic pain. I think I too felt very, very lost. I was like, my identity was ripped out from under my feet. Everything that I thought I was moving towards in adulthood just simply disappeared. And so, I guess it was for that reason and maybe tied to a little bit of what you were saying earlier, Delane, not to suggest that we're at all like in terms of, but it was discovering a way to do something with this new knowledge. And I really admire the fact that you've taken it to the level that you have and will continue to. And I'm with Keith. I know, and Virginia, I know that you're already doing amazing things.
Yes.
I know you'll continue to do amazing
Yes.
things. And I've seen you at work on the committees, and I've seen you, bringing your passion and clear thinking to everything. And it's a wonderful gift that you're bringing to the space.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it. And I think I am one of many. And I feel like whether it's because of the amazing work that the action plan has laid down, whether it's, the growing awareness of chronic pain in a lot of the trainee activities that I do, there's even at CPS, we had that wonderful lunch with people with lived experience and trainees. And the different trainees I got to talk to is also amazing because lots of them too have lived experience of living with chronic pain. And so I think it's a real movement of new researchers coming into the space that are not only informed from a research perspective, but also who are still bringing their lived experience to their work. And it always, obviously it's a similar experience to mine. So I always just really, really treasure when I get to meet another trainee who lives with pain, who's doing work on pain. And I do think it does add a special kind of drive for the reasons that, we've talked about.
I'm just really pleased and excited to see people like yourself who, have had this less than positive experience in their life, but are now emboldened to be able to take that and bring it into research and, like you say, meet your, other trainees. Do you have to live with pain to be able to support people? Not necessarily, but if you do, does it maybe make you a little better? I would suggest it gives you greater insight. And to see that we've come to a place now where people like yourself and your other trainee colleagues are like, I have this experience and I'm now able to bring this into academia and research as compared to in the past where I would suggest those doors weren't as open to people like yourself. And now you're saying, it's happening and you're there and you're meeting others. It gives me a lot more hope for the future.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it's really exciting. And, I think still there's work to be done. There's always work to be done.
Right? Yeah.
To improve things. And it is really exciting. And also just, as much as there's this growing awareness of chronic pain, there's also this growing awareness of patient-oriented research and patient engagement in research. And, oftentimes for us people living with chronic pain, we either have been involved as a patient partner, or if we are trainees or researchers, that's the kind of work we're doing because we know it matters.
Right. And I love how you've just very nicely brought in that there's this growing, integration of people with lived experience into research and into academia, because I just believe that brings a richness and a fullness to the work that happens. So you, as I've already said before, are all in one package. You bring that lived experience, clinical experience, and research. It's just amazing to hear. Like Jen said, you've been doing amazing work, and what you have going forward is going to be just even more incredible with you and your colleagues.
And when you mentioned the Canadian Pain Society trainee person with lived experience lunch, we were there at the same time. There was a buzz in the room that was very exciting because the trainees there who perhaps hadn't had a chance to meet with people with lived experience and understand the potential for input may have come away with a different perspective. And as you say, there was tremendous networking going on there. And I think that that's part of this movement we're talking about, isn't it? And it's hard to imagine research without that voice.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, even there was some work that I did with a group of awesome researchers. I think it was like 3 or 4 years ago now. And we looked at kind of like how trainees are kind of engaging people living with pain. And lots of people were saying how valuable it is and that they want to, but then there are the barriers of how do we do this and funding to reimburse patient partners, compensate them, or how do we find patient partners? And even in like the 3 or 4 years that we published those results, so many amazing things have happened. Like we're having, trainee and patient partner lunches. And, we have Pain Connect, a little shout out for Pain Connect on the Chronic Pain Networks, which is a hub for connecting people living with pain and researchers so that we can make that more easy to kind of do. And, there's more knowledge and education being spread about how you can meaningfully do patient engagement, because there's definitely, we could talk a whole other podcast about how to meaningfully engage patients, because there's definitely ways that people do it well. And then there's ways that people do it that are more tokenistic. And it just shows that, like I said before, there's more work to do.
And you know what? And even the patient engagement goes beyond the research. We had talked the lead in Newfoundland, and they had the patient partners on their planning committee. I mean, the patient partner needs to be involved in everything.
Yeah, exactly. And even just to squeeze in one more thing, trainees and doing patient engagement are really important. And patients themselves are starting to do research, right? There's
Right.
patient-led
Yes.
research. I know
Yeah.
Virginia and I are working on some peer support work together for that.
Nice.
And then, yeah, we're also at the Putting the Pieces Together conference. We're actually dedicating a whole session, so you should come, to
Yes.
mapping the future of pain research and just getting people living with pain together to put together their own research priorities. Because it does start with patients, and it should start with patients.
That's fabulous.
Yes, that is incredible. With that, Delane, I think this is a great way to wrap up today's episode, Delane. I love how you've brought forward what is happening so much with people who live with pain and working with, the researchers and the clinicians, because I know I have a tendency to sometimes get lost in the weeds and you don't see how far things have come. And like I say, there's always more work to be done, but it's really happening and we're seeing it really ramp up now. It's a bit of I would say, an exponential curve. So we're just grateful and thankful for you for sharing your time and your expertise with us today. And, just giving ourselves and our listeners a chance to hear about some of the work that not only you are doing, but your colleagues in the trainee and the clinician and person with lived experience. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, and thanks for joining. Like, I love having people here. I'm real passionate who other people who live with pain. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for joining us today on Action on Pain. If you enjoyed the discussion, please follow us on your preferred podcast platform to stay updated, and please share with your networks. A 5-star rating and review would help others find our show. Your feedback is important.
This podcast does not contain any medical advice. Please consult with your doctor if you have any questions or concerns.
The Action on Pain podcast is made possible by the generous support of the Chronic Pain Network, a national research and knowledge mobilization network.
The views, opinions, and content shared by hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of the Chronic Pain Network or its funders.